Stop scrolling. This Corrie twist is insane and fans are losing it already. Face screaming in fear. In moments early ITVX occasion of Coronation Street, Will Driscoll made the huge decision to report child groomer Megan Walsh to the police after an emotional intervention from Tim. Although Will believed Tim was taking him to the field so he could flee with Megan, Tim had other ideas and rather drove him straight to the police station. After some soul-searching and a sincere discussion, Will eventually began to accept the verity about what had happened to him. Tim participated his own experience with Will. As Tim headed off with Will, Ben came decreasingly concerned after entering a worrying communication about the cancelled Glasgow train. Alarm bells started ringing when Will still claimed on going to the station. Effects also escalated when Ben discovered Will's passport was missing, while Susie verified that £2K had faded from the safe. The family snappily realized Will was planning to leave the country with Megan. Trying desperately to get through to him, Tim opened up about his own once experience with an aged woman called Tricia. He explained how, looking back now, he could see he'd been taken advantage of when he was still just a child. Will also admitted there was commodity going on between himself and Megan, but claimed their relationship was different because they loved each other. He prayed Tim to take him to the field, with Tim pretending to agree. Will reported Megan to the police in Coronation Street rather of taking Will to the field. Tim pulled up outside the police station. Although Will was originally furious, Tim gently encouraged him to suppose about everything that had happened and helped him realize that Megan had prepped him. Tim comforted Will that his family loved him and were desperately upset about him, giving him the confidence to eventually walk into the station and report Megan to the police in important reversal. After giving his statement, Will came back out to find the Driscolls staying for him, before they wrapped him in an emotional clinch. But while Will has now taken that delicate first step, the coming challenge is chancing Megan. But can the police manage to track her down snappily? Megan Walsh looks set to eventually face her punishment in Coronation Street, as tonight's occasion saw Will Driscoll go to the police. Will had refused to believe that sports trainer Megan had been abusing him and had sworn to his family that nothing had happened between them. In reality, Will and Megan had been in a relationship for months, and slept together for the first time on Will's 16th birthday. Before this time, Megan's abuse was exposed by Sam Blakeman, which came as a huge shock to the Driscoll family. Though they tried to get to the verity in a shot to see Megan face justice, Will continued to defend her, unfit to accept that she'd done anything wrong. In tonight's occasion, Will got held up in Tim Metcalfe's hack while on his way to meet Megan. His family allowed. He was heading to Scotland to stay with mute Melanie, but in reality, he planned to run down with Megan. Fortunately, when Susie Price revealed that she had seen Will steal from the Rover's safe, Ben Driscoll and Eva Price worked out his plan and were suitable to let Tim know before he let Will get out of the auto. Apprehensive of the situation, Tim opened up to Will about his own experience of grooming. Viewers will recall that Tim was just 14 times old when original shop adjunct Tricia Pinkerton slept with him. Although Sally Metcalfe refocused out that Tricia had abused him, Tim didn't see it that way. Still, having deliberated on Will's situation, Tim has easily had alternate studies about his relationship with Tricia. He explained to Will that sleeping with her had made him popular at Academy, with indeed the preceptors stroking him on the reverse, but that because he was below the age of concurrence, she had ravished him. Tim managed to get Will to admit that Megan had slept with him, but he was adamant that they were going to start a new life and a family together. When Tim eventually pulled over, Will was furious to realize that they were at the police station, where Tim gave him a choice. Tim promised that if Will really wanted him to, also he'd drive him to the field, but if he wanted to report Megan, this was the time. With Tim having refocused out the excrescencies in their plan to run down, he managed to win Will round, and the teen headed into the station, where he was met by his family. Is this the end of the road for Megan? Will she eventually face her punishment? Coronation Street airs a game-changing discussion between Will Driscoll and Tim Metcalfe tonight after Will planned to flee to France with groomer Megan Walsh. In history's occasion, Will left the cobbles after agreeing to live with his mum in Scotland. Unknown to his family, he'd formerly made plans to leave the country with Megan after stealing £2,000 from his pater's safe. During a discussion, Ben told Steve that he was dreading dropping his son off at the train station, so Steve suggested Tim for the job. After an emotional farewell, Will got into Tim's hack and headed for the train station, where it was revealed that he planned to take the train to the field. Moments occasion opens in the hack, with Tim entering an announcement that the train to Glasgow had been cancelled. When Will insists that they head for the station anyway, Tim becomes suspicious. Having also seen that Will's train is cancelled, Ollie tries to call him. After Ben realizes Will's passport is missing, he panics and tells Steve to communication Tim, instructing him not to let Will out of his sight. In the hack, Tim tells Will each about his relationship with Tricia, saying how much he enjoyed it at the time, but how he's come to realize that technically he was a victim of rape. "She took advantage of me," Tim says. "Whether I knew it or not, whether I enjoyed it or not. And I did enjoy it. What lad wouldn't?" After Will claims they're in love, Tim senses some remorse in the teenager and drives him to the police station, prompting Will to go by and tell the verity. "I do not watch about Megan," says Tim. "I watch about you. So does your pater. And Eva. All you've got to do is tell the verity." Tim says he was not stalwart enough to tell the verity about his abuse, telling Will that his family have been through hell. Tim watches on as a nervous Will enters the station. Will is shocked to find Ben, Eva, Maggie, and Ollie staying for him. Latterly this week, Tim will come to terms with his own abuse, as he eventually confronts evil Tricia Marlowe over her major grooming after realizing he was also prepped as a teenager by an aged woman. Coronation Street observers reckon they have cracked the riddle girding Megan Walsh's natural father, and it's a fabulous character from the cobbles. Megan arrived on the ITV cleaner last time in the part of calisthenics trainer to teenager Will Driscoll, whose family dislocated from Hull to Weatherfield. His menage includes Father Ben, Grandmother Maggie, and Ben's mate Eva Price, who made her comeback to the road after a 7-time absence. Yet, it latterly came to light that Megan had been covertly fixing 16-time-old Will for months previous to his relocation. She was also awaiting his baby, with the brace colluding to ultimately escape together, and recent scenes. Still, Megan's world collapsed when her disturbing crimes were brought into the open. Despite police questioning, inadequate substantiation meant no charges were brought against her, reports the Liverpool Echo. With multitudinous locals baying for justice, Megan set up herself among 5 implicit casualties during last week's explosive murder week plot. Nonetheless, observers discovered she had not met her demise. Yet, with Megan remaining on the scene, devoted observers are induced her preliminarily unmentioned father is none other than Cobble's stalwart Tim Metcalfe. On a Coronation Street Facebook addict runner, sympathizers theorize that Tim sired Megan with his own groomer, Tricia. One addict suspected, can this be true? Tricia had a child with Tim, and it happens to be Megan. Apple does not fall far from the tree. Others chimed in with blessing, one opining, good call. A third bystander penned, great proposition had not indeed allowed about it. Adding to the chorus, another addict mused, oh, plot twist. Long-time watchers will recall Tricia's appearance last time as part of a harrowing grooming plot centered around Tim. The brace were reunited when she hopped into his hack. According to Tim, Tricia was his first sexual experience when he was just 14 times old, while she was in her 20s. Yet, despite Sally and Tim's mates pointing out that this constituted fixing given Tim was underage, he refused to admit it. He stood by their age gap, averring it was consensual. The situation grew decreasingly minatory when Sally stumbled upon a nipping comment on one of Tricia's social media prints, with someone declaring she should be locked up for what she's done. Earlier this time, ITV launched its new Power Hour cleaner scheduling, with Coronation Street and Emmerdale both shifting to a fresh broadcasting pattern. Sinister Theo first appeared on the ITV program last time as Todd Grimshaw's rearmost romantic prospect, and chemistry between them was instant. Yet Theo progressed to manipulate and brutalize Todd over multitudinous months, trying to dominate every hand of his existence. Whether it was force-feeding Todd and gaslighting him, confining him to the bedroom, or cutting him off from family and musketeers, Theo's atrocity has been implacable and ruinous. He was indeed responsible for Billy Mayhew's death in the Corriedale auto crash before this year. Last week, still, Theo's true colors were revealed following a brutal assault that left Todd covered in blood and injuries, reports the Daily Star. Despite police questioning, Theo walked free but was instructed to stay down from Todd. Todd has latterly escaped to the lakes for a short vacation with Sarah Platt. Upon discovering this, Theo returned to Weatherfield, roiling the original residence, and Monday's investiture, Theo visited the corner shop where he menacingly brazened Summer, claiming Billy had contended with him for deliverance during the crash, leaving Summer hugely horrified. However, suckers reckon they have cracked how Summer might land Theo behind bars. Over on a Coronation Street Facebook addict runner, eagle-eyed observers have refocused out that the CCTV cameras may have captured Theo's confession. If Theo has just said that about Billy while on camera, why do not Summer take it to the police? Surely it can be picked up. What a vile, disgusting human being. He needs bouncing ASAP, reflected one bystander. Another chimed in substantiation, while a third suggested, yeah, perhaps they will catch him that way. Meanwhile, Gareth Pierce, who plays Todd, lately opened up about the harrowing Theo plot and special occasion, revealing so numerous domestic abuse survivors have participated their jests with us throughout this plot. And weaving those voices into this occasion, through the use of color, felt like an important memorial of how wide stories like Todd's are.